Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
All right, guys. I have John Marshall all the way over from New Zealand to join our show today, the Whole Athlete Podcast, to discuss one of my favorite topics, mitochondria function, and the role the mitochondria play in our performance and our longevity. So thank you for coming on the show today to dive into how we can really optimize our mitochondria and what they all are about.
Thanks, Debbie. It's a pleasure to be here, and mitochondrial function is one of my favorite subjects too, so this should be fun.
So what is your role with MitoQ, the company, and how did you kind of get wrapped up into this? What's your story?
Well, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer, so I look after everything from the branding to the content creation and communication through to our target audience groups, most of which we do from a digital point of view through a combination of social and digital advertising and web and landing page communication. So that's my responsibility. I've been with the business for 2 years. And I guess my pathway to it, interestingly, was through a health issue that I was challenged with a few years ago. Kind of got me into understanding a little bit more about cellular health and how I could take proactive measures to improve cellular health and build resilience. And that got me to understand a little bit more about the mitochondria and how important they are, particularly as we get a little older, the role that they play, and the importance of that role. And in understanding that, I came across the product, which is MitoQ, and then interestingly enough, through a mutual contact, I actually got to speak to the CEO, and we had a good chat, and ended up with me being given an opportunity to come and work for the business, which is really a dream come true. So it's without question the best job I've ever had.
I always say everything happens for a reason.
I couldn't agree more. Yes.
Yeah. It's great to find jobs that are in line with your viewpoint and your experiences. And I think a lot of people, as I venture away from fitness training to health coaching for athletes, that a lot of other people that I meet through nutritional therapy and the functional diagnostic practitioner conferences I just finished attending this weekend, that everyone has similar stories that brings us to this field. And I think it makes it more passionate because it's personal, that you had a story that, you led you down this path to find out more about mitochondria. So it's great that you have interest in mitochondria function, and it makes it probably more exciting to learn about the research and share, especially marketing, because you would be interested in it.
Well, I think that's a really important point. I think, there's a personal investment here, which, to be honest, I'm not alone. Everybody in the business is really dialed into a very strong sense of purpose for the company, which is to, I think, first and foremost, educate people around the importance of mitochondrial health and why they should care about it. That's the most important thing here. Yes, MitoQ is a solution for that, but the solution doesn't make sense unless you've actually bought into an understanding of why investing in the health of your mitochondria is actually a really important strategy for you.
And the word you just said, I always ask, is why. We have to understand why we need to do things to motivate you to take a supplement to improve your mitochondria function. Because I don't think most people even understand really the role of the mitochondria and why we need to supplement, because people always think, I don't need to take digestive enzymes or HCl or anything to help my gut health, and mitochondria, I don't need that. And it's so funny because who doesn't want to improve the aging process? Who doesn't want to improve performance in daily life and their athletics? So I think it's important to understand the why.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, you're dead right. I mean, the story, the hero in this story are the mitochondria. And when you first start talking to people, you can see this kind of faraway look in their eyes as they cast their memories back to grade 4 or 5 biology. And they're thinking, I seem to remember something about those mitochondria. And funny enough, particularly when we're talking to US-based audiences, everyone seems to remember that the mitochondria are the power plants of the cell. So it's the one thing everyone learned at school, which is a nice start.
We know how to draw the mitochondria. That's about it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, at least that's that's a step in the right direction. I think when you actually get under the hood of what these little things do, and the impact that they have on our ability to exist, it's quite mind blowing. And look, I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to put my hand up straight away and say that's my understanding of this only goes so deep. But I've immersed myself in it over the last couple of years, and really got a much better handle on just the miracle that really is human life. And right at the heart of that are your mitochondria. So, the best way I like to explain things is that if you stop and you close your eyes and you think about all of the activity that's taking place inside your body at any particular moment in time to ensure that you are alive and in the moment, whether that's your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your liver regulating temperature, your brain sending out neurological signals so that you know what to do. All of that activity requires power in order for it to work. And all of that power is supplied by your mitochondria, which are the little battery packs inside the trillions of cells that we have inside us. So they take the air that we breathe and the food that we eat, and they convert it into the fuel that the cells burn in order for them to do their jobs. And that fuel is called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. And without ATP, our bodies can survive for about 20 seconds. That's kind of how important it is. And it is supplied entirely by your mitochondria. So these little things are the essence of life in so many ways. And that's mind blowing just to stop and think about that, all of that activity that's taking place. I think there are some studies that suggest we produce about 3 times our body weight in ATP every day. Wow. Which is quite astonishing. And what we also know is that from around about the age of 30, mitochondria start slowing down, and they start slowing down because we've asked so much of them in our formative years in terms of our growth and development. And part of that energy production process is a little bit like a combustion engine. There's an exhaust that gets created through the energy production process, and all of this takes place inside the mitochondria. And that exhaust is called a free radical, which lots of people have heard of. They've heard of the term free radical, but not quite sure what they are. And effectively, they're rogue atoms that have a missing electron. And what the mitochondria do is that they understand that allowing substantial numbers of these free radicals out of the mitochondria into the broader body of the cell can cause quite a bit of damage, because what those free radicals do is they go looking for that missing electron and they steal it off other parts of the delicate cellular equipment. And when that happens, damage occurs. And if that damage accumulates, that can cause some pretty serious downstream health issues. So mitochondria are pretty good at creating an antioxidant called CoQ10, which they produce themselves. And they use that antioxidant to sort of neutralize these free radicals and stop them escaping into the cell. So from about the age of 30, the mitochondria start slowing down. And as a result of that, they produce less CoQ10. And as a result of that, less of the free radicals are kind of mopped up and neutralized, which means more of them escape out into the cell and cause damage. And the sort of high-level effects of that are, first of all, our energy production is compromised. So we produce less energy and we slow down a bit and we feel a little bit more tired. And then also, because we've got these free radicals starting to overwhelm our cells and create a state of oxidative stress, I think is what it's known as. Mm-hmm. We are more vulnerable to illness and disease, and we recover more slowly, and our resilience is sort of challenged. Now, both of those empower effects are really describe the aging process. We get tired and we get sick and we recover less quickly. And all of that is driven from your mitochondria perhaps not performing at optimal levels, And that's an important issue for us to understand from a health point of view.
Well, I think a lot of what I keep reading and learning is about chronic fatigue and the confusion of, where is that coming from? Is it from our mitochondria dysfunction, or is it HPA axis dysregulation, or technically that's what it's called, adrenal exhaustion, and
yes.
your genetics. And I think it's a combination of the three, but I think a lot of the symptoms you get from mitochondrial dysfunction overlap with hormone imbalances and just hidden internal stressors. So it's really hard to know. There's not just one thing, but it's just everything needs attention as we change to another year of living.
I totally agree with you. And I think that it is really difficult to get under the hood and understand exactly what's going on. And sort of the more you do that, the more sort of complicated and crazy the whole system is in terms of the way it works. It's quite fascinating, really.
But that's why I think I just throw in there, but that's why I think we need to treat everything, not just one. You need to work on your stress and contributors to stress, but also, I think learning what you're getting to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just
I agree with you.
For the mitochondrial function is so overlooked. And I think a lot of people, are trying to do keto and low carb and work on their fat loss, but they don't realize that energy isn't just, it's all, there's so much more to it than just
I couldn't agree more. And I think the way we sort of describe it is that, if you want a car to move as quickly and as efficiently as possible, the one thing that you must maintain and keep performing optimally is the engine. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what the quality of the fuel is that you put in. If the engine is rusty and isn't working properly, then the car's not going to go fast, and it's going to be clunky. So the mitochondria are really the engine force that sort of sits within our cells, and looking after them ensures that the very essence of your internal motor, is working as effectively as it possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's that the car analogy always works so well for the body.
Does.
All the parts need to be working in order for your car to run, and you need to get some tune-ups and take care of it and replace the parts. So go back to the role of the mitochondria. So for energy production, but also we need it to support our vitality, our focus, and our strength, and how that impacts for endurance athletes, especially, are really, living life as a race, I say, and trying to do too much every day on top of a full life schedule, and trying to have a family life or social life and work full time and train 20 hours a week. It's a lot on your body. So what are we doing to our body that impacts our mitochondria, and why this is important for athletes to listen to and learn about?
Well, what we know about mitochondria is that they, number one, thrive in environments where there is good balance and low levels of stress, both mentally and physically. And with that comes the ability to recover well and get yourself adequate rest to recover well from strenuous exercise. A good diet, good nutrition supports mitochondrial health, and regular exercise as well. So it's the classic, exercise well, eat well, and get enough sleep. But I guess even if you're doing those things well, your mitochondria are still going to start slowing down from the age of 30. And there are studies to suggest that it slows down at a rate of about 10% per decade from the age of 30 onwards. So supplementation then becomes important as well, what you can do to support it. And acknowledging the fact that, I guess, from our point of view, most educated and health conscious people will understand the holy trinity of exercise, good diet, and getting enough rest. But the question for us is, how do we do that in our busy lives, and how do we achieve that, which is a real challenge. What we're finding is, through some of our studies, that absolutely supporting mitochondrial health can be a real it gives you more in the tank. It gives you more energy to be able to deal with the day-to-day pressures and handle them in a much more balanced and effective and efficient way. So it's a very smart strategy in terms of your investment in your health.
I think it's great for people to listen to this, because I know a lot of people in the keto world are trying to just, the supplementation for just taking exogenous ketones, or ideally, you increase your own ketogenic fuel source by what you eat or not eating and fasting. But it's an important part to still supplement with mitochondria support, you're saying. So it's not just the need for create energy from what we eat and what fuel source we're using for energy, but how the whole mitochondria work to produce energy. So going from a high carb diet to a low carb diet makes a change in the mitochondria function. But as we age, as you're saying, over age 30, 10% less every decade is a lot. And if you're a high performing athlete, well, I think you need to take your health into your own hands and figure out, what am I going to do? And there's so many options, but if you could do 5 things to improve your health, I would think mitochondria should be up there on top of the list.
I think there's 2 aspects to it, really, particularly for athletes, but for anybody, but particularly for athletes. One is it's being able to sustain your optimal energy production. Which obviously translates into performance. That's massively important. The other thing is that we don't want anything to slow us down. I think we've all been there when we're in the middle of a big training program and we get sick and you kind of fall off the wagon a little bit because something interrupts the training program, be it the flu, be it a stomach upset, whatever it may be. So being able to maintain your natural resilience and I guess guard against or stack the odds in your favor, let's call it that, with respect to your ability to be stronger and have more resilience, I think is really, really important in terms of the consideration around mitochondrial health. So to me, they're the 2 aspects of this. One is that it's about energy production, but it's also about stacking the odds in your favor in terms of your long-term health, longevity, quality of life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the mitochondria itself and how they play a role in producing energy based on our age and our requirements for energy, our demands on life, and add exercise on top of that, and then what people eat. What are you finding research wise for people that tend to eat a high sugar processed standard American diet, the impact on their mitochondria function when they don't change what they're eating? Have you looked into that?
Yeah, there's been some research into that as well. And if we're going to continue with the car analogy, if you can cast your mind back to when cars had chokes, which would kind of flood the engine with the fuel so that they actually started in the morning, that is not a bad metaphor for overloading your body with sugar. It overwhelms the system, and it absolutely decreases the efficiency with which mitochondria can, process the glucose and the oxygen and turn it into ATP. So, it makes a huge impact on that.
So then you take that stress on your body, on your mitochondria, then add if people do excess exercise, because it's always that Goldilocks effect. How much of something is too much that it's not beneficial anymore, and that right amount that gives you that benefit of improving your mitochondria, their strength, and building that resiliency. But is there a point that there's too much exercise, more is not better, that impacts our mitochondria and function?
Well, I think one thing we definitely know is that in the right with the right levels of exercise, you can actually produce more mitochondria because you're asking more of your muscles and your cardiovascular system and all of the other systems that support it. And the body will respond to that by actually generating or building more mitochondria to produce the extra power that's required. So that's a good thing. But with any training, if you overtrain to the point where you're stressing your body and not giving it the opportunity to recover, then that's going to have a negative impacts on the mitochondria as well. So, you've used the word balance a few times, and that seems to be such a important aspect to everything that we do in this busy time, if you like. It's a frantic world, and we all seem to be overloaded, and finding the opportunity to get the appropriate amount of rest and recovery is an important challenge for us not to ignore.
But I've read some articles on improving your mitochondria function to improve your energy levels is more hormetic stressor, improving that resiliency, and that seems to be related to your heart rate variability and the nervous system, and not doing long distance cardio. It's better to do more HIIT training and short bursts of stressors that helps our mitochondria function over, say, doing a 2-hour run. It's better to do, less with more high, low heart rates, or, cold water to hot water, and just do those quick blasts of stress versus the long-term chronic stress.
Well, that's interesting. I think that there's a variety of different approaches that are being tested at the moment. We're doing some work over here in New Zealand where we're actually seeing that we can lift the intensity of the training based on somebody taking MitoQ, because the efficiency of the system is improving, and the pace at which recovery takes place is also improving as a result of taking the MitoQ, which means you can dial up the training intensity, which obviously then translates into better performance on the day of the event or whatever it is that you're targeting. So I think we're all individual, aren't we? And I think that there's, we different people respond to different stimulus, and it's about working with someone who can help you, I think, understand what works best for you. Yeah. But I think what we're seeing, certainly from people taking MitoQ that we are testing, is we're seeing improvements in power outage, we're seeing improvements in VO2 max, improvements in heart rate variability, all of which are pretty positive biomarkers for improved fitness and I guess improved performance.
And that's what I wanted to get to next, is what is MitoQ and how it's supposed to penetrate the mitochondria 100 times more effectively than regular just taking CoQ10 and antioxidants to improve our oxidative stress levels. So kind of talk about the science behind MitoQ and how it works and how we can test it, as you just started to go to.
Certainly. Well, MitoQ is short for mitoquinol, which is a unique formula that has been, created as a result of trying to find a cure for Parkinson's disease many, many years ago. There was some research that suggested that Parkinson's disease was driven out of mitochondrial dysfunction, and some scientists over here in New Zealand, in combination with some scientists from Cambridge University in the UK, wanted to look at that and try and understand if there was a way they could preempt it in many ways. And what they understood was that it was the depletion of the CoQ10 antioxidant inside the mitochondria that was potentially the cause of the problem. And what they couldn't understand was taking a regular CoQ10 supplement, which you can buy over the counter in most chemists or pharmacies. They couldn't understand why that didn't have a material impact on the mitochondrial function. And when they looked at it and examined it more closely, what they discovered was that the compound that sits within a regular CoQ10 supplement is too big to pass through the mitochondrial membrane, which is very selective about what it allows inside. So effectively, it just kind of gets into your bloodstream, but not an awful lot gets inside the mitochondria. Because, and as it was described to me, it's a little bit like trying to drive a delivery truck into your garage through your front door. It just won't fit. So what they played around with was how to shorten the length of the CoQ10 compound so that it could be absorbed through the mitochondrial membrane. And they figured out how to do that. And they also figured out how to put a positive ion and attach it to the I guess, altered CoQ10 formula, which they did. And that's important because the mitochondria are negatively charged. So MitoQ effectively is a shortened form of CoQ10 with a positive charge attached to it. So it's immediately attractive to the mitochondria when they see it floating around in the bloodstream, and they're drawn to it, or they draw it towards them. And because the CoQ10 formula has been reduced in size, it can pass through the mitochondrial membrane up to 1,000 times more effectively than a regular CoQ10 supplement. And then what the MitoQ do with the mitoquinol is that what the mitochondria do with the mitoquinol is that they line the inner membrane, and what that then goes to work, what that then does is it goes to work neutralizing those free radicals again. And once they start getting mopped up and causing less damage, energy production is sustained at optimal levels, and you've got less of this oxidative stress taking place because the free radicals aren't bursting out into the cells in large quantities as they would do if they weren't unchecked. So that's what MitoQ does. There's no other supplement in the world that actually can target the mitochondria in quite the same way, or indeed get inside the mitochondria in such meaningful levels, which is what makes it a very unique and very special supplement.
That's great to look at the pictures too, and I will put everything in the show notes, but there's great visual, and you make it easy to understand with the video that we did the opening of the podcast with, but I'll put that in the show notes so you can watch it, because it makes it a lot easier to understand with nice little cartoon characters.
Well, we try to turn it into a story that was easier to understand and kind of absorb, because it can get very complicated very quickly, and people can lose interest because there's a lot of big words and big scientific terms, and that can be quite intimidating. But yeah, I think that the animation that we've done is really designed to sort of simplify it, but give you enough information to understand exactly what's going on and how exactly MitoQ works and the impact that it can make.
Well, as I'm just finishing becoming a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, FDN, which there's lots in Australia and New Zealand. Everyone seems to be more into health there in the UK than the US. It's funny, but part of our program is testing, functional medicine testing, to test people out versus guessing. And one of the tests we do is a metabolic assessment test that measures oxidative stress. And it'd be interesting to see if you see someone, which most people on our labs will show they have high level of oxidative stress. So if you work on someone's liver congestion, work on giving them the MitoQ to improve their antioxidants and mitochondria function, it'd be great to retest to see if it's working. So how do you know if this is working? Because everyone takes all these supplements, but how do you know that it's improving your mitochondria function? How can you measure it?
Great question. I think I'll answer that in a few stages, if you like. Firstly, we get overwhelming feedback from our customers telling us what an impact it's made, and they're a range of different people, from everyday folk who are just wanting to keep going and are busy and need more in the tank and don't ever want to slow down, to people who are actively trying to manage a health condition and are looking for ways to support that and to improve or maintain quality of life. And on our website, there are any number of customer testimonials that are telling us that taking MitoQ has made a real impact in a positive way for them, which is, it's encouraging isn't the right word. It's really what we get out of bed for. So it's fantastic that we're having this sort of a positive impact on people. So we've got an awful lot of social proof behind it. In terms of scientific proof, I think there's been we're up to 400 peer-reviewed papers that have been published on PubMed, which are various medical institutions across the world have tested MitoQ in a variety of different across a variety of different health conditions. And the feedback from there is overwhelmingly positive. There's been $60 million of independent research pumped into testing MitoQ in a variety of different ways. So we've got a lot of scientific evidence to support us as well. I think that at the individual level, it's really encouraging to hear that there are ways that we can test for metabolism and the impact of oxidative stress. We, being MitoQ, I think need to understand that a little bit more and figure out what role we can help in terms of that process. But another way that we are seeing some important and impressive change is with the athletic community, who are by nature a group of people who measure biomarkers all of the time from a performance point of view, whether it's heart rate or heart rate variability or power or whatever it may be, even down to time on your favorite run or bike ride or swim or whatever it may be. And we're starting to see some evidence, particularly amongst athletes who are sort of at the upper end of the age group, sort of late 30s, moving into 40s and even 50s, who are coming to us and saying, we're actually recording personal bests at this time in our life, which is pretty huge, and also gives us a very strong sense of the taking MitoQ, whilst not a silver bullet by any stretch of the imagination, doesn't replace hard work and it doesn't replace a good diet, but it's part of that equation and can help give you an extra edge if you're doing everything else well, properly as well. So, there's quite a bit of evidence that we can point at, which tells us that, this is the real deal.
Well, I'm excited to test it out. And with nutritional therapy, we do functional evaluations and test a supplement on someone's body against their points of digestion points and their liver function. So it'd be fun to use that and test it on people, as well as the lab testing we do in the FDN program. We start with 5 basic labs and then create a protocol for that individual based on their lab results and clinical correlations to their symptoms, and then find supplementation and work on their dress protocol. We say that nutrition, their diet, rest, exercise, sleep, stress. And I think it'd be interesting to see how it works with the whole athlete, because obviously, it says here, healthy energy levels, organ function, mental focus, resiliency, overall well-being, healthy aging. Well, when we do metabolic testing on athletes, and then when we do the functional labs as pathogen testing, gut, leaky gut, permeable gut wall lining, we do food sensitivities, we do the hormones and the oxidative stress and digestion of protein and fat and liver congestion. So it'd be really interesting to put this all together, because I know my story. I've, based on my performance, went from the highest performing athletic level I've been in 2012 to being the worst ever in 2013, from my high to the very lowest. That I find it wasn't just so-called adrenal exhaustion. It wasn't my adrenals. It's not just my HPA axis function. It was also when I started looking into my genetics and my ability to deal with stress and recover and repair. And you can look at genetics for oxidative stress and how you might need to support more, as I looked in with DNA Fit. Yep. And then take that information with the mitochondria function on how that contributes to fatigue. And I think there's nothing, like we say in FDN, we don't treat one thing, we treat everything all together, because it works as a whole, as you're saying as well. That yes. You can't just tell one thing, but it's just the overall picture. Everything's connected. So there isn't just one part that's dysfunctional. You said the mitochondria are everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. I think it is a very holistic viewpoint that I think we should all be taking. But I love that point about the DNA. I think that's for us, that's a kind of a natural next step for us in terms of being able to help people personalize what their health strategy looks like is working with DNA profiles and figuring out what we can do from a mitochondrial health point of view in supporting that, because I think that's a big opportunity.
Well, because for me, my story, I was like, well, why me? Why does this happen to me? And then all these other people are racing just as much. And why am I the one that got broken?
Yes.
So I think it's so individual, and people start reaching out to me and understanding and sharing the same stress and breakdown and burnout and dysfunction. And I think everyone needs to, I always suggest, look at your genetic profile, upload them into DNA Fit or one of the whatever programs are out there that will help you identify those areas of opportunity that you may need to be the one that supplements a lot more for your antioxidants. Yep. And your MitoQ is like a great solution.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So tell us about how this works and how people take it. And there's different ones and who's...
Yes, look, the hero product is called MitoQ. And each capsule has 5 milligrams of MitoQ in it. Our recommended dosage is that you take 2 capsules a day, first thing in the morning, about 20 minutes before you eat breakfast. And the reason for that is that that's going to maximize the absorption rate. And so you're going to get all of that MitoQ flowing into your cells and your mitochondria pretty quickly if you follow that. We are doing some testing with some athletes in terms of increasing that dosage and seeing what the impact of that is. It's perfectly safe to take, several MitoQ capsules a day, but our recommended dosage is 2. And we generally say it's unusual for someone to feel an instant impact, which is a challenge in today's world of self-gratification or instant gratification, I think. But we tend to see anything between 6 to 8 weeks is generally where people can start noticing a bit of an impact. And what that's a result of, we think, is your bodies are continuously recycling cells and going through various different stages in that process. And we think that sort of the 6 to 8, possibly even 10-week mark is giving your body an opportunity to go through a regeneration cycle, and as it's replacing those cells, it's replacing them with really strong and healthy mitochondria. And depending on which of those cells have been replaced, if it's part of a big organ regeneration, then you're likely to feel the impact of that. And it is, again, it depends on people's individual physiology, but the most common feedback we get is that you just don't feel exhausted at the end of the day. You've got a little bit more, or a lot more in the tank. We get stories about mental clarity and just feeling, a greater level of a focus, sort of in that mental paradigm. I think we've got stories about people being able to improve their sleep, which is also important. And it all seems to kick in at around this 6 to 8 week mark, which is important. And then once you've got these cells and mitochondria tuned up, you just need to keep taking the MitoQ so that you're just continuously, ensuring that they can operate at optimal levels. So, it's an ongoing strategy, but it's a pretty important one for anybody, I guess, looking for, really strong quality of life, and I guess building that quality of life over a long period of time.
Yeah, and that's what we kind of do something similar in FDN when we work on creating a supplement protocol for an individual, is sequencing and titration. So if something's working, you may want to stop taking your 20 other supplements and just take MitoQ, start with it 1, see how you feel, because everyone responds differently. And if it works okay, add another one. And then, maybe just do MitoQ for, you said, 4, 6, 8 weeks, but maybe just do your own test.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we've got some other products in the range as well, which are, once you've kind of introduced yourself to MitoQ and tested it and seen the impact it has on you, then there are options to be a little bit more specific about a part of the body that you'd like to target in terms of your health. So
is that we've got the page? If people look on their website, MitoQ.com, which MitoQ supplement is for you and as the different ones, is that what you're speaking
absolutely. And what we've done there is we've every single MitoQ product has the same amount of the hero product, mitoquinol, in each capsule, which is the 5 milligrams as I spoke about before. And we recommend you start with the 5 milligram product and test that out and see the impact that it has on you first. But if you're feeling that it's making a big impact, then some of the other products that we have in the range have got ingredients that we have sourced that are again proven to have an impact on a certain sort of health aspect of your body, and the way these formula work is that the mitoquinol helps tune up that cell so it's firing at maximum capability, and it is able then to really leverage these extra ingredients and nourish the cells in that particular part of your body as effectively as possible. So, you get a real kind of a boost in that space. So we've got a MitoQ heart, we've got MitoQ liver, and the ingredients that sit in addition to the MitoQ for both of those products are specifically proven to support heart health and liver health, respectively.
Wow. I keep thinking how cool this will be if I test the hormones, your cortisol, melatonin, and see the cortisol rhythm and the melatonin, and how if you can regulate that a little bit more to optimal levels with taking this support, as well as working on the oxidative stress metabolic assessment that we do and see how the liver functions working and less overload on the liver with the oxidative stress and how it all kind of helps everything.
Yeah, look, and if you are going to test that, please keep in touch because we'd love to know how it goes. And it's important for us. We're still learning and figuring out what this can do. So any stories that we can help us understand, I think, a little bit more about what the product or the impact of the product is pretty huge from our point of view, particularly with people like yourself who are, in a position of, the health practitioner, if you like, and the influence that you can have on other people with respect to lifting their level of awareness around the importance of mitochondrial health. That's important for us, and anything we can do to help you, just let us know.
Well, that is my focus, and what I say: burn fat, optimize mitochondrial function, improve performance. So it's definitely something I'm working on. But one more thing I'll add too is the importance of perhaps correlating this with their blood sugar regulation. Because if you want to, like if we use Keto Mojo in my coaching client programs, and I have them measure their blood glucose in the morning and their ketones to see if they're metabolizing fat. Have you ever done any testing with that to see if it improves their ability to burn fat and testing even metabolic efficiency?
Yes, we certainly have. In fact, we've got a product that is called MitoQ Blood Sugar that, again, has mitoquinol and then a couple of other ingredients that we know help improve glucose management and blood sugar level management. And that's proving to be a very effective product as well for the people that are taking it.
So we did a recent podcast, well, maybe it was last year, but I still keep in touch with Kirsty Woods at Metabolic Health Solutions, and they're a neighbor of yours. And
right.
There's Dr. Dan Plews, who's in your area, does stuff with Paul Larson on HIIT training. So I think team up with those guys, and I think it'd be fun to kind of see what you can do, because Kirsty, they're doing a lot of it on blood sugar regulation and teaching people to metabolize fat, but a lot of them are not athletes. They're focused more on people that are more overweight, obese, and health conditions. So it'd be kind of fun to see how the importance of mitochondria function can improve one's overall health as well as, athletic performance and longevity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So great. Well, we'll put all the links in the show notes for our listeners, and any other questions we'll send your way, and perhaps have you come on the show and with I'll do some lab testing, see what happens once I'd
love to do that.
Some bottles, and I think it'd be fun to test, because I must say I used to do Ironmans 2001, 2012, and I did sign up for Ironman Canada next year, and I'm all about testing how I can improve my mitochondria function and not have happened what happened to me in the past. Sure. So I'm trying to figure out how to train for an Ironman based on having a lot of health issues the last 5 years, and how to make a return to endurance training without breaking myself down from the inside out.
Well, you're a case study yourself, aren't you? So whatever we can do to help, please let us know, and please keep in touch. I'd be fascinated to hear how your journey goes. Yeah,
well, I'll start tracking when I get it and start monitoring. So I thank you so much for your time and all my questions. I just love this topic, and just got off of the FDN conference this past 3 days. So I'm so curious of how, this we can test and see how it's working. But I think I recommend people to really focus on their mitochondria function, because I think as athletes and top performers and overachievers and people with chronic stress, which is probably everybody, yes. We need to do something, or else you're just speeding up the aging process and getting more wrinkly and fatigued and crippled. So,
well, that's a great summary. We might quote you on that.
Oh yeah, I don't want any more eye wrinkles, and it's my birthday tomorrow, and I still say I'm 35, and I'm not 35 anymore, but trying to pretend I feel that I am. I don't want to feel old and crippled. So thank you for what you guys are doing, and we're here to help spread that information out to our listeners.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.